G'day to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. In case you're not aware, I'm on the banks of the Parramatta River. It's late afternoon on a Tuesday night. I'm heading off to fellowship, but I thought I'd just spend a little bit of time and go through one more book summary for today to make it two in total. So what we'll do is we'll go on a walk and talk. I think I'll just head up this way here towards Parramatta, and we'll go through a book entitled Hell Yeah or No by Sivers. And it's a book which will hopefully teach us a thing or two in terms of commitment, in terms of focus, and getting more out of our lives than what we have in the past. The author kicks off the book with a wonderful quote where he says, "To serve is great, but you need to strike a delicate balance." Life, as we've heard many a time, is all about balance. Just trying to strike the right balance at the right time. But when we talk about the right balance, we don't talk about perfect balance all the time, but we're talking about making sure that we're doing the right thing at the right time, and hopefully when all things are measured and laid out, that we get an equal or a balanced outcome across a whole spectrum of things that we do. But more importantly, it's not about just talking. It's not about just verbalizing and making plans and making goals and dreaming. The author here is very clear in the message, where he says that ultimately we reveal ourselves, not through our words, not through our values, but through our actions. Whilst it sounds pretty simple, I must admit at 61 years of age, I've seen the full spectrum, and there are a lot more people out there who are talking about what they're going to do, are getting on their high horse, their moral high horse, and projecting moral values. But at the end of the day, as the author says, it's what you do that matters, as opposed to what you talk about and what you align to. So actions speak louder than words is a catchphrase that I grew up with as a kid. The author then goes on to say something else which is pretty special and pretty interesting. And it's important, I guess, in these days to be able to talk in the present tense as opposed to the past tense or the future tense. And I guess this also helps us become present in the here and now, to be firmly implanted with both feet in the here and now. And it's only when you're in the present tense that you can be action oriented. Else, if you're in past tense, it's all about memory and what happened before, and you can't change, and the future never comes anyway, so tomorrow never comes. So the author is very clever in the way they present this, and remind us that we need to learn to speak in the present tense and not to be fooled by yesterday and tomorrow, because they are no longer available to us. It's what we have now, what we're doing now, what we're thinking now, what we're saying now, what we're actioning now is what can change our lives. The author then goes on to say something else which is really interesting as well, where he says that Old opinions should not define our future self or our current self. Your past doesn't equal your future, and Anthony Robbins would say that all the time years ago when I'd go to a seminar, and it's a very, very profound sort of saying that old opinions should not define our future self, and our past doesn't equal our future. The author also goes on to say that we must never underestimate the importance of small actions, because small actions add up, according to the author. They snowball. So 1 + 1 + 1 + 1, before you know it, can add up to 1,000, could add up to infinity, as long as you're consistently doing it and consistently adding to it. So compounding of actions, regardless of how small they are, can make a huge difference. And we've learnt time and time again that people will always overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but completely underestimate what they can achieve in 10. So the author then just reiterates this point and tells us that how you do anything is how you do everything. So the way you tackle each and every task, the way you hold yourself, the way you think, regardless of how small it is an expression of who you are. And as the author here reminds us, how you do anything is how you end up doing everything. So it's important not to be lazy. It's important not to drop the ball and take the shortcut every time, because our actions demonstrate who you are to the world. Whilst it sounds pretty cheesy and it sounds pretty simple, it's really what you do that matters most, as opposed to, as we said before, what you say, what you think, and the values that you push forward. So the author then goes on to say that it's important to learn how to say no. It's important to learn how to say no to all future distractions till you actually end up finishing what you started. The world is full of people who have started project after project that have amounted to nothing. It's not about how you start or where you start. The author here is trying to get us to understand that what is more important is finishing what you start, and in order to finish what you start, you need to kill off all the distractions along the way. We're saying that we shouldn't just do things for the sake of doing them, but take time to evaluate what we're doing and why we're doing it. But by the same token, when we start something, when we have a goal, when we have a strategy, you start it. The key thing is just to finish it. I always remember when my children were young and they'd say that, oh, I don't want to continue doing X, or I don't want to continue doing Y. I say to them always, fair enough, let's stop doing X, let's stop doing Y, but what are you going to replace it with? We just can't stop and do nothing. We've got to stop doing whatever we were doing and replace it with something else, which is going to help us grow, develop, and become better versions of ourselves. The other thing that the author talks about here, it's an interesting sort of concept, and he says that when you're asked a deep question, the best thing you can do is to avoid answering it quickly. Because usually our first reaction to a deep question is most probably outdated, because we live in a world that's constantly changing. Change is happening everywhere, and as we said, at every aspect, at every level in our lives, we need to be changing with the changing environment. We're not saying change completely. We just mean to realign our actions with our goals and our values. But the author says here just to avoid answering immediately, because chances are the answer that we're going to give is outdated and may now be irrelevant. The author then goes on to say something else, which again is quite profound, that in order to bring something new into our lives, in order to bring someone new or something new, a new job, a new partner, a new family member, we need to create a space for it. You just can't keep on cramming things into your life without it suffering in some way, shape or form. So there's a call to action here from the author that we need to make space in our lives for the new things that we want to come in, which is also another way of saying that we need renewal all the time, and we outgrow our friends sometimes, we outgrow our families, we outgrow our jobs, because we're constantly growing, we're constantly changing, and with that we need to make space for the new things to come into our lives, so that we give it oxygen, give it fertilizer, and enable it to flourish. The other thing he talks about also in this wonderful book is that we need to be aware of advice, especially free advice, because the author goes on to say that only you as an individual knows the nuances of every situation that you're involved with. And because only you know the full nuances, the full story, the full interpretation of the story, then by the same token, only you are in a position to, make a call on something important in your life. So the author then goes on to make a couple of specific points, and he says that when we choose to do things or make decisions, our decisions need to be compelling. There needs to be a compelling reason to do what you do. And the compelling way of identifying if something is what you should be pursuing should be whether or not you say to yourself, hell yes, I need to do this. And if it's not a hell yes, or if it's not a real yes, I've got to do it, then maybe it lacks the passion, and maybe it could be an indicator that it's not something that you should pursue. I'll just move on and see what else we've got from this book here. So the author then also goes on to say that one of the powerful things that we can do to help us grow and develop is to assume that we are below average in order to keep on learning and to keep on growing. And to understand that if you're making mistakes, if you're failing, it just means that you're on a path of growing. You're on a path of learning other ways of doing things. The author introduces the concept of being accountability. And there are times where you need to be, and you need to go against the common message, because not everybody has the answer. Not everybody has lived the future. Not everybody knows the right way of going about doing things. And a lot of people get caught up in a thing called groupthink, where they'll just go along with what the majority are thinking. And of course, the majority could be thinking something that a stronger sort of personality within the group is thinking, and not actually thinking at all, but just absorbing and just assuming that that person knows what they're talking about. So being accountability, I've never quite heard it described that way, but sometimes in our lives we need to be accountability. We need to be our own counsel. By all means, take advice, listen to what other people are saying, but make the final decision yourself. Don't delegate, don't outsource your happiness to other people, because, as we said before, only you know the nuances of your life and what you're trying to pursue. And the author there goes on to say that fulfillment comes from pursuing rather than attaining certain things. And the main obstacle to an amazing life is your self-control, being able to take your time, going as fast or as slow as what you need to go in order to get to where you want to get to. And the other thing he says here as well, which is really powerful and really interesting, is that you don't get wise by just adding and adding and adding. Sometimes you need to subtract. And what does that mean? Basically it means that sometimes we need to unlearn things in our lives. I find it quite interesting listening to a number of anti-vaxxers, and they come up with argument after argument, and you ask yourself, a lot of those arguments are outdated, have been fact-checked, have been proven wrong, but you keep on adding to your knowledge base, but you're adding all the wrong knowledge. So what you're doing is you're snowballing, and you're creating a view of the world, a worldview, which is based on misinformation and disinformation. So there will come a time where some people will need to start to subtract from what they know, to relearn, and to undo the damage that has been caused by the misinformation and disinformation that they've been subjected to. The next point, and we're finishing off here, is that the author says that in order to make a change, and a meaningful change in your life, sometimes you'll be seen to be extreme. It never ceases to amaze me that being Christian, being a Greek Orthodox Christian, is now considered to be extreme, an extreme religious faith. Whereas there was once where the world centered on Christianity, and it wasn't seen to be something which was extreme, but to be seen to be something very, very normal. So finishing off here, we talked about the fact that in our lives we'll come across a number of plans, and we'll need to understand that each plan that we come across, each plan that we consider, is just one of many futures. Because as we say, all of us have lived a different past. None of us have lived the future, but we're all going to have different futures. And we're all going to have different nows. I'm here at Parramatta, you're somewhere else, other people on the other side of the world. Even if we were both here at the same time, we are both going to experience a different here and now. Some people will focus on the waterfall. Other people will focus on the trees. Other people will focus on the sights and sounds and the smells. We're all getting a different slither of reality. We're all experiencing a different reality, and we're only experiencing a slither. And that slither of reality makes up our worldview. So the last piece of advice from this author is that basically we need to live our lives and to basically do rather than talk and plan and posture, and to basically do whatever scares the living daylights out of us. Within reason, of course. We're not talking about taking on silly risks, but to do the things that make you feel uncomfortable, because we have to live outside our comfort zone. That's a message which comes out in most of the book summaries that I present. So I think I'll leave it there. So thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Jim's 5am Club, where I come to you from the banks of the Parramatta River, where we've just gone through a book entitled Hell Yeah or No by Derek Sivers, where we learnt a thing or two. So there you go. So I look forward to coming to you again from a different place with a different message of empowerment, where we can be partners in each other's growth and development, where we can live, learn and pass it on, and we can feast on the morsels of OPE, other people's experiences, where we can selectively add to the inventory of life hacks that we already have, and supplement it and complement it with new knowledge based on what other people have been able to experience, document and share with us. Take care, and we'll chat again. Bye for now.